Dwayne Johnson has been one of the biggest actors in the world for the last 20 years, but he has some beefs in Hollywood, and now he's been trashed by Zachary Levi. And in 2002, it was announced by New Line Cinema there was a Shazam movie in development with Dwayne Johnson set to play the character of Black Adam 20 years before he actually did in the Black Adam movie. Shazam, which was originally called Captain Marvel, and Black Adam have an interesting history where they were created in 1940 and 1945, but they weren't created by DC Comics like many people would think, but they were actually created by a company called Fawcett Comics. And Captain Marvel, aka Shazam, was initially a huge hit with kids in the 1940s, selling 1 million copies per issue, but the problem was DC sued Fawcett Comics saying Shazam was a rip-off of Superman. And that led to an issue for years where Shazam and Black Adam comics were discontinued because of the lawsuit until 1953 when DC finally bought the rights to Shazam from Fawcett. DC wouldn't begin actively producing Shazam and Black Adam comics again until 1972, but they couldn't call the character Captain Marvel anymore because of a trademark dispute with Marvel over their character Captain Marvel as well. And then after that, it took DC and Warner Brothers 30 years to actually do something with the Shazam franchise, where in 2002 they announced that they would be partnering with New Line Cinema, which was going to make a Shazam movie and cast Dwayne Johnson as Black Adam. New Line Cinema definitely took their time making that project happen, where they actually went through 5 different writers and directors, and they didn't actually have a set screenplay until 2008. The problem was the Shazam movie was in trouble because New Line Cinema was facing bankruptcy after they failed in 2007 with the Golden Compass movie, which only made $372 million on a budget of $180 million, and it actually lost the company $88 million. Just explaining how a movie can make $372 million on a budget of $180 million and still lose money, it's important to know that US theaters take 40%, but international theaters take 70%. There was this claim the Golden Compass movie was anti-Christian, so it actually failed in the US, making only $70 million, and of the $300 million they made internationally, 70% went to theaters, so the movie was a huge financial flop. So because of that financial failure in 2008, New Line Cinema made a deal with Warner Brothers where they'd actually merge with the company, and because of that, Warner Brothers got the rights back to Shazam, but they didn't want to make a Shazam movie. That was because in 2008, Warner Brothers had a massive hit making The Dark Knight, which made $1 billion on a budget of $185 million, being more mature. That same year, Warner Brothers had a massive flop making the movie Speed Racer, which made only $94 million on a budget of $120 million, and was much more campy than The Dark Knight was. So Warner Brothers told the producers of Shazam and also Dwayne Johnson that they weren't going to make a Shazam and Black Adam movie because they thought the character was too campy. Then Warner Brothers changed the direction in 2012 after the Avengers made $400 million more than The Dark Knight Rises did, and they realized they wanted to build a shared universe. Because of that, Warner Brothers reintroduced the idea of Dwayne Johnson playing Black Adam, saying they wanted him to do the role in the movie The Suicide Squad alongside Will Smith, where he'd be the final villain. But Dwayne Johnson wasn't interested in the idea of joining Suicide Squad because he joined the Fast and Furious franchise in 2011 and didn't like the idea of him playing a side character in another ensemble movie. Dwayne Johnson ended up waiting a little bit longer until 2016 when it was announced there would be a Shazam movie with Zachary Levi playing the character Shazam and Dwayne Johnson playing the character of Black Adam, but the issue was the moment it was announced, Dwayne Johnson said he didn't want to do it with a shared movie. Dwayne Johnson, there's always been a little bit of insecurity around him as a person, where he originally didn't want to be an actor or wrestler, but wanted to be a football player playing college football, and he did get drafted for the Canadian teams, but the problem was he was cut early on. After he couldn't do football and joined the WWE, following his father's footsteps, he did have a lot of issues dealing with the WWE, where he didn't want his character to lose fights ever. When he got bigger into movies in the 2010s, he began requiring studios to sign a no-lose contract, where he got the idea from his Fast and Furious co-star Vin Diesel, which was a contract saying his character couldn't be beaten up too much in scenes and also could never lose a fight. That became the big reason that Dwayne Johnson didn't want to play the character of Black Adam alongside Zachary Levi as Shazam, because he didn't want his character to ever lose a fight. There was also a feeling from Dwayne Johnson's perspective that Zachary Levi wasn't a big enough name actor, and he didn't like the idea he was cast below Zachary Levi in a movie. Dwayne Johnson insisted on the idea that Zachary Levi gets his own movie as Shazam, where he was paid $500,000, and then Dwayne Johnson would get his own movie later on called Black Adam, and he was paid $22 million for it. The Shazam movie with Zachary Levi ended up happening in 2019 and was a hit, making $372 million on a budget of $100 million, and also got a 90% on Rotten Tomatoes, which made it the highest rated DCEU movie. The same couldn't be said for Black Adam in 2022, where the movie only made a little bit more than Shazam did, making $393 million, but it cost way more, costing $260 million, and it also only got a 38% on Rotten Tomatoes, so the movie was a total failure. The original plan from producers was they wanted Zachary Levi to have an end credits scene where he meets Black Adam for the first time, but the issue was Dwayne Johnson wasn't interested in doing that. Instead, Dwayne Johnson had the idea to make DC work out a deal with Henry Cavill to return as Superman after 7 years and promised the idea of a Black Adam vs. Superman movie. That idea faded, where even though Dwayne Johnson came out publicly saying that Black Adam made $60 million, it was revealed later on the movie actually lost $40 to $60 million. And to make things worse, DC just ran into problem after problem after problem, like Ben Affleck's shrinking, Ezra Miller's arrest, Amber Heard being Amber Heard, and they ended up having 6 movies in a row losing money, where they collectively lost $400 million on the DCEU. The biggest failure for DC was actually Shazam 2, which didn't get the same love the first one did, only making $134 million on a budget of $120 million, meaning it actually lost about $70 million. And the Shazam team did actually try to get Dwayne Johnson to do a cameo as Black Adam for Shazam 2 to try and boost up sales, but he wasn't interested in it, basically saying it was below his pay grade. And this has caused Zachary Levi to go against against Dwayne Johnson the last few years publicly, saying that he didn't feel like Dwayne Johnson wanted to be a team player and didn't have any interest working with his character at all, despite the comics. And this is why a lot of people have had a changed image of Dwayne Johnson over the last few years, where he used to be loved by everyone, but now a lot of people in the public view him as sort of a narcissist, which I think is kind of true. And with that, I'm Charles Brawler. Please subscribe to learn something.